Hi everybody, welcome to Reverse the Verse. This is Wednesday, I almost said it was Friday. This is Wednesday, March 30th, 2016. I'm your community manager, Jared Huckabee. With me as always is our Director of Community Engagement, Online Strategy, Spaceships, Master of Disaster. Do we have any more?
That's it, I think.
Ben Lesnick. Joining us momentarily is our Chairman and Founder, Mr. Chris Roberts. Should be here momentarily. He's wrapping up some important business at the moment. So Ben.
You said moment a lot in that sentence. I'm not fond of it.
That didn't last long. So our special subscriber edition RTV is something we do once a month, usually the last week of the month. These are, anybody can watch, but we take questions specifically from our subscribers. There are two ways to submit questions to the special subscriber edition. One is in a dedicated forum thread that's in the subscriber den. That's closed now since we're live. And second is the subscriber chat on the RSI website. So if you have a question for us, at the moment, and soon Chris Roberts, you can submit your questions in the RSI chat in the subscriber tab by prefacing your question with the word question, surrounded by brackets. And if for any reason you don't have access to the subscriber tab, but you are indeed a subscriber, you can click in the lower right-hand corner of your chat window under More Channels and enable the subscriber chat if for any reason it's not already enabled. And of course, if you're not a subscriber and you want to be, you can do that too. How do you subscribe, Alexis? Where's that on the website?
There's a subscriber landing page.
There's a subscriber landing page. So if for any reason you want to become a subscriber, you could, because there's all kinds of neat, fun add-ins there. I'm looking for it right now.
It's in the pledge store.
Yeah, it's in the pledge store. There it is. In the pledge store. You can subscribe.
You want to also tell them that mouse pads will be available tomorrow for subscribers?
Mouse pads will be available tomorrow for subscribers. You guys get first crack at our new Anvil Aerospace mouse pads featuring the Carrack, the Crucible, the Hornet, and the Gladiator. So
There'll be an email going out later today.
there will be an email going out later today.
Gotcha. Yep, subscriber chat is filling up now. More and more people are joining.
If anybody out there has questions that don't need Chris Roberts, we can take those while he finishes up.
The first question is about Chris's favorite tea and soccer club. We're not going to be able to answer that until Chris Roberts is here.
Isn't it? I feel like it's Manchester United and like a black tea of some sort. Is black tea a thing?
Yeah. I think British tea is usually black tea.
Okay.
What is your question about Man U?
Is that Chris's
That's
soccer?
football team.
Okay, I got it right. Here we go.
What's his favorite tea?
That I don't know.
So please, any other personal questions about Chris Roberts that we can answer?
We can speculate on them.
Boo Man City, yay, Man U.
Hey, Ben Grayson asks if there are any updates on the SciTech HOTAS.
Not yet. We're waiting for the production prototype. We don't want to start pre-orders until we've had a chance to play with it, but I think that's not too far off.
Hey, Ben, why haven't we heard much about the Orion lately?
Well, it's in a holding pattern. The concept work has been done, and it's waiting for technical assets to free up so we can start getting it in the game. We are thinking about it quite a bit because probably heard the rumor that we are working on a smaller mining ship that will, the Orion is the pinnacle of mining ships. That's the one you want to work towards. We're working on the first step of that process right now. So we've been thinking a lot about mining and how it works on a small scale, how it works on a large scale. It's fun work.
Sunline wants to know if we're ready to say what the next concept sale will be.
Yes, it's that small mining ship.
So the next concept sale is the small mining ship by Misk, right?
Yes.
Ben, how are you doing today? Asked Dejarinator.
Pretty well. I've been really good lately. Good, thank you for asking. How are you doing, Jared?
I'm all right.
No, good time. We're all happy here. Everything's good. How are you guys?
We're all doing fine here. How are you? Small reactor leak. Very dangerous. Voon wants to know if all the old Banu merchantman concepts are all trashed and the idea is to go for some different design.
No. That's not a thing. Usually when we talk about more concepts or refining a design, it's things like, okay, we have this external concept. What does the inside look like? How do you get from place to place? And you get more of the practical game considerations that have been developed since the original pitch. But it's not, oh, we don't want the caterpillar anymore, it's going to be different. Or we don't want the band of merchantmen anymore, it's going to be different. Nobody ever aims to do that.
Darkstar wants to know if we've come up with a name for that small mining ship and if we're willing to share it yet.
Yes and no, respectively. But you guys can guess.
Ered wants to know if the flyable Starfarer will be a loaner ship for larger ships like the merchantman.
Well, that brings up an unrelated answer. If you folks want to check your hangars today, and you do not already have a Starfarer, we have put one in every. But we've put one on every hangar for the next couple days, so you can check out the Starfarer even if you don't own one, because we just want to show off Foundry's work. It's big and cool, and we were impressed.
And to answer his question, if once the Starfarer is flight ready, would it be a loaner for something like the merchantman?
Yeah. We have to go through and figure out what the loaners are, but yeah, we should do Starfarer loaners for the bigger ships.
We reevaluate every time a ship becomes flyable. All right, so our special guest is here. He's standing waiting for his grand entrance. Presenting, ladies and gentlemen, the founder, CEO, and chairman of Cloud Imperium Games, Mr. Chris Roberts. Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Which camera am I looking? This one or that one?
Yeah, no.
Look at either one.
You can look at us though.
To you, so.
How you doing?
Good. Sorry.
We told them you were in an important meeting.
Yeah, I was showering. I worked out very early. That's the only time I get to work out is before I come to work. And then we had a bunch of early meetings because we have to we'll coordinate with the UK and Germany, and of course it's 8 or 9 hours behind for them. So basically, I didn't have time to shower after the workout, so I was here for 9 o'clock meetings onwards, and then Ben's like, "Hey, we got the reverse. I better get showered. You don't want to see me all sweaty." There you go.
Now that's open development.
Too much sharing. TMI.
All right, Chris. Well, we've been collecting questions on the forums for about a week, and we have our subscribers in chat. The first question that we have for you is off our forums thread from Snuggix. He wants to know if there's any news about the new holotable that we first previewed all the way back in around the verse 31.
So we are working on a whole bunch of new UI stuff, and a lot of everything's been sort of held up because we have this new persistence that we're going to roll out, beginning with 2.4, and then more of it will be in place for 2.5. So just the foundations will be in for 2.4, and a lot more functionality comes in then. So a lot of sort of the UI and management of stuff is changing around because we're going to have persistence now. So we're going to move more stuff to, say, your mobiGlass and some other areas. So we're sort of still in the process of that's one of the reasons why on the sort of holotable we decided not to be spending a bunch of time on it until we had the persistence and the various aspects, because we sort of have to handle the, not because the actual end goal is for you to not have to go to your hangar to change your loadouts around. You may want to be able to do it live. Say you've landed on a landing pad, and you may want to pull out your mobiGlass and go, can you please move this, weapon from here to here, and all this sort of stuff. And so that's kind of in progress. So we'll start to see beginnings of that in the next 2.4, and it will carry on from there. But we are aware that people would like an easier to use holotable, which we are dedicated to doing. I mean, that's something that Paul Rendell put together in a week about 2+ years ago. So the overall concept of using 3D is pretty cool. It's just the fact that there's a lot of usability issues and not detecting and being able to filter it well and all the rest of stuff, which will get addressed. And then you'll have the ability probably to do managed stuff from your mobiGlass as well as from dedicated stations ultimately in the game. But our longer term goal is to sort of never have you leave the base game. So right now consider that Crusader. So we'd really like you to sort of start on Crusader, or Stanton is actually the system it's going to be, but eventually the full PU. And you don't have to load a separate loading to go to a hangar and then go to ArcCorp and then go that. That's all going to be going away. That will all be gone away by the end of definitely by the end of this year, and probably before that. So that's sort of what we're working towards, and that's kind of one of the reasons why you haven't seen progress on the holotable, mainly just because there's a lot of other sort of foundational work that's happening, and we don't want to do work that we're going to have to re-engineer.
Gotcha.
Now you just got back from the UK. What were we working on over there?
Everything. Well, so now this year I'm spending a lot of time. So I'm spending, when I go over to Europe, I spend a week usually in Germany, and then about 2 weeks in Manchester, and then I'm back here for 2 to 3 weeks. So like next week I'm going to go to Austin for most of the week, and then I'll be back here for another week, and then I'll be back in Europe. So generally it's more about spending time with everybody face to face, and I'm really, this year the focus is trying to pull all the sort of elements, the sort of foundational engineering part, so the kind of back-end server, the how we scale the sort of game servers so we can have as many people as possible. So there's some sort of ongoing engineering that hasn't debuted into the sort of live environment that will make it much better and more efficient and more reliable than the current system, which is sort of some of the stuff that we've redone, but it's also some of the old stuff, and so it's a lot of it's sort of held together with gum and wire and tape and all the rest of stuff, and so we have a completely new sort of foundational system that we think is going to be a lot better. It's very sort of next gen in terms of cloud servers and everything that we'll do. So it's pushing that, pushing the AI stuff. There's a lot of AI work that we need to have working for Squadron 42 and then ultimately in the persistent universe. Just spending FaceTime with everyone. That's why I'm back here, spending time with everyone here, because you can do Skype meetings all day long and all the rest of stuff, but actually being there and having that sort of one-on-one sort of iteration and conversations makes a big difference.
Gotcha. Now, you said the word persistence. Easily half these questions are about persistence. People have heard in our ATV News Around the Verse that we're starting to work on the very beginnings of persistence and testing out. What can you tell us about where persistence is and where we're going?
I don't think they've heard that yet because it's broadcast tomorrow.
Wow. Right. Ahead of time. But anyway, so persistence is the ability for your game state, the state of your items, your inventory, your ship, your person to persist beyond the game session you have. And so up until now, that really hasn't happened. So you have a set of items, but really that's what you've sort of pledged for or backed, and you have sitting in your web account. And then every time you load into Crusader or you load into Arena Commander or into the hangar, they're sort of instantiated there, but if you take your ship out and it gets damaged and then you leave the game and come back, everything's pristine, it's not damaged. If you earn, you don't really have the ability to sort of have reputation persist or money really that persists. We have the sort of rec implementation in Arena Commander, but it's kind of sort of slightly hacky because you earn it in the game and it gets written back to the web platform, and then the web platform communicates with Arena Commander when it comes back. So getting persistence in is a pretty massive step. So in the next full patch we release, all the sort of kind of temporary stuff goes away, and it's communicating with a persistent database that's sitting in the back end in the cloud, and we will be serializing out sort of your states of your what inventory you what's equipped on what item port, and that will persist. And because right now you can kind of change things around in the hangar, but that just writes it out to a local file. So if you went to another machine and logged in with your account and did it again, none of the changes you would have that you made on that on your original machine would actually be transferred across. And so all those things will be now, that will persist. So whatever you set up your loadouts, how you set your ships, that will persist. We're going to persist so several levels of things that we plan to persist. I'm not sure if everything will make it in for the next release, but over the next few releases it will happen. But we'll be persisting your money. So we're going to go with what we call Alpha UEC for the initial period. So that will be money that people can earn doing missions and doing other stuff, and they can use that to buy in-game items. So eventually the Voyager Direct Store on the web is going to go away, and you'll be buying those things in the game. Not all of that will happen right away because we have to implement the shops for that. So we'll have some of the shops, and then more and more will sort of come online. And once we have the full set, then the Voyager Direct will go away on the web. So you'll be able to sort of buy and sell, and then states will persist. So if your ship is damaged or your item's damaged and you've got to repair, so we'll start to move to a game model where if you fly, you got to pay for your thing. You got to, right now you get rearmed and refueled for free, and so it actually affects gameplay. So the intention of the gameplay is things like ballistics or missiles should be actually pretty hard-hitting and powerful, because their downside is they're finite. You're using ammunition or you're using your missiles, and so you have to go back and buy some more. And so that's kind of the idea, where ballistics are a little harder hitting. They go through shields, but the downside is that you have a finite amount of ammo, whereas an energy weapon may do less damage or gets deflected by the shields, but you have essentially an infinite supply of the ammo there. So what you ultimately want is at a place when you're flying around in space, you would sort of switch to ballistics or use missiles in a case where you need to sort of quickly inflict some damage, because if you don't, you may be in trouble, or there's a moment that you can do, because it's a commodity that is expendable, right? So you have to replenish it, and so that will actually change player and combat behavior, because that doesn't happen right now. People just fire all their ammo and then they can go to Cryastro and get it refilled for free. If they're in Arena Commander, when they sort of respawn, they just get their stuff back. So the idea would be to sort of manage your sort of belongings in a way that you would in the real world, which would be, make sure that my ship's repaired, make sure, ultimately we're going to have age and wear on the ship, so you'll have to keep them maintained. Like right now, if you owned a jet or a helicopter, you would have to rebuild the engine every so many hours of operation. And so we'll start to move all that towards persistence, which will actually start to change the gameplay dynamic. It'll be much more like a real universe. So but we can't do that all at once, but it will be starting to come in over the next X number of major patches that we're going to come out, and I think it'll be big, because then you'll actually have things to work towards. We'll open it up so you can start to use Alpha UEC to buy ship components and even upgrade ships or buy new ships. And the way it's going to work is Alpha UEC, is Alpha UEC, which means that we can sort of wipe at certain periods, because what happens if there's a bug or there's an exploit or something that we do. So if you're the downside of Alpha UEC is what you've worked towards at some points will potentially go away. We'll probably make it so you can spend your normal UEC that you have, and then we won't wipe things that you got in that case, and we'll probably allow you to take your regular UEC and also sell those items back, whereas with Alpha UEC it'll be more like the final game implementation, where if I buy a car, I drive it off the lot, and then I want to come back and say, I don't want this car anymore. They're like, well, okay, but it's depreciated or whatever, where that probably wouldn't happen with the regular UEC. So in the sort of alpha, but we'll start to sort of roll that out, and I think it will make that all of a sudden will start to change the feel of the world and the universe very much. So persistence is very, very important, because you can persist reputations or relationships or what you've worked towards. So that in hand with, we're working on the back-end server tech to enable sort of persistent, to allow you to sort of have seamless handoff between servers. So you can have more people sort of in one area. Like if you're in the Stanton system, and there'll be dedicated servers in different areas, and if you fly from Port Olisar to Port Correa, you'll be handed off from the server that's managing, say, Port Olisar to the server that's handling Port Correa, and you won't realize it on your client side, because it will all be seamless to you, but the authoritative server is the one over at Port Correa, and so all of that will sort of open it up, and then the universe that you're playing in, starting with the Stanton system, will feel like a living universe and more persistent. So persistence is huge. I mean, that's persistent, and then sort of server transition, so you're not just on one instance like you are right now. That's sort of the two big things that make it sort of a proper, fully fledged living sort of MMO.
And we're seeing the beginnings of that with 2.4. This isn't a list of everything that's coming in the next patch.
No, that's not going to all be in the next patch. I'm just saying that what we build towards. But the most important thing is the base systems in there. So there's actually a very, very, very big change that's happened in the code base that people probably won't notice. It will mean that the hangars will behave differently. So because the hangars, there is the same. It's part of a persistence, so they're going to be ready with the persistence. So there'll probably be a little bit of bumpy whatever turbulence you want to call it, in 2.4, 2.5, until we sort of get the hangars back to sort of what you're used to now. Because what will happen right now is you'll just pick what hangar you want to start in, and you'll be in a base hangar, and then you'll be able to sort of place around some objects and items and say which ship you want sitting in your hangar, because the persistence database has no way of sort of knowing the setup of your hangar, and ultimately our longer term goal would be for you to let the player sort of customize his hangar. So this is the beginning of that. But you'll sort of lose some of the functionality of having the big massive hangars right away until the UI and some of that stuff comes in. But that is now possible, so every player potentially can, instead of it being some algorithm that's figuring out, oh, we have so many pads and this is the ships, and you do something on the web platform, you'll be able to set up your hangar the way you want it, and that will completely persist just the way your ships will persist. And so it will be, I think people will like it. So it's a big change, and the fundamental aspect of that's in there, so everything's persisting. So we had to change everything over to that. So everything that's done the old way has gone away in 2.4. So I'm very confident there will be issues and bugs and all the rest of the stuff in it. But it is the foundation that builds the proper full living universe.
Very cool. All right, Breebase asks, now that the EVA is physicalized, what is the current plan for implementing push and pull?
Push and pull is just sort of an extension of what we're doing with the physicalized EVA. So, the idea is that you'll be able to grab onto things or push away from things, and that will be sort of either, pushing away is a physical impulse that you'll push away, or grabbing onto things will be a constraint that would be on the articulated body or the human body that we're simulating. So when you grab onto something, like if you're going this way, you'll swing and you'll be constrained by the point. So it'll be fairly physical accurate. It's something that's going to require a lot of playing around with to make it kind of usable and fun. So we'll probably do things like you can reach out for a grab point, and if you're close enough to it, we sort of kind of let you grab on and push in. So because otherwise, if you actually have to be exact on everything, it's going to be really difficult. But that's the physicalized EVA is sort of stage one of what the push pull is. So it's one of the things that's on the plate of the sort of what we call the FPS internal team. So we have a group of people that are just working on you running around on foot, and that's the FPS team, and they're handling sort of all the sort of player like motions and actions, the state machine for the player, all the things like I think in 2.4 we'll have vaulting. I'd have to double check, but I think it's in. But all things like vaulting or sliding and mantling and all the rest of the stuff. So ultimately, the sort of FPS side of things will be 100% equivalent to anything you'll see out there in the best of other FPSs. You'll be able to do all the same kind of things. That's on our roadmap, and one of those things will be the push-pull. And I actually do think the EVA and the zero-G aspect of the game is one of the things that sets it apart, because you just don't get that in other FPS games. So I think it's going to, our goal is to have everything else be at least as good as any other FPS, but on top of that, have this extra dimension. It'll take a while to get there. It's a lot. We've got about 4 engineers on that team working just on sort of the SPS, and a bunch of animators supporting them, and some tech designers doing it. But there's a lot of stuff to implement it right. We're trying to do everything in a very systemic way. So there's a lot of very specific stuff that, say, CryEngine does away because it knows you're only in first person, you're only on foot, and so it handles everything in very specific ways for a gun versus a grenade. Whereas with us, we're sort of building a much more generic system. So, gun and grenade aren't necessarily concepts that we want to have specific different code paths for. Okay. And so there's a lot of refactoring that's been going on to make it a much more extendable system, so that down the road, like, when we decide to create new weapons and new items and new functionality, it's pretty easy to do because we've got a system. And this is, so we've talked about item system 2.0. Well, that encompasses both personal items, stuff that you would use yourself, like armor you would wear, or a gun or a grenade or a hat or clothes you would wear, as well as items that are on ships, like a gun on a ship or a power plant on a ship, or a seat as an item. Doors will be items. So everything runs with the same sort of systemic code base. They all connect to each other, like like doors need to be connected to a power, and so there'll be a power plant. Like this will be the same on a space station, where a power plant would give power to say the doors and the lights, and if someone destroys the power plant, then the lights go off and the doors don't function. You have to manually open them. So that system, we're basically replacing everything in the engine with that. And then ultimately, even the spaceships themselves, right now we have this concept of a vehicle, and then we add all the items to them, and the items deliver most of the functionality. The thrusters deliver the ability to move things around, and the power plant delivers the power. And so really right now a vehicle is kind of a hull, and it can't really do anything until these items are attached to it. If it doesn't, I mean, people will know when items go away, then suddenly the ship stops moving and working. So we're actually going to take that one step further, and instead of it being a vehicle anymore, you're basically going to have a hull item. And so you'd have a hull item, and then you want a car, you put the plug in 4 wheels, and so it's basically like a chassis item. You plug in 4 wheels and an engine and a steering wheel and a seat, and that's a car. If you want a spaceship, it's a power plant with thrusters and an IFCS avionics system, and it flies around. And the nice thing about doing that is we unify vehicles and items, so like the way damage is handled, the way all these things are handled is one system, so it makes it much easier for us to sort of optimize and make sure there aren't bugs, because a lot of times you have problems in games when you have 2 parallel systems that kind of do the same thing, and a lot of code, like, so you change something over here but you didn't change it over here, and so and then if there's a bug you fix here but then you forget to fix it over here, then there's still problems over here. So we're trying to bring everything down to this new design. So basically our what we call item system 2.0 is ultimately almost going to be the core, what you would call in game programming, like the core entity class. So it's a core concept, and then we just take the item and the entity, so to speak, and we add these components to it. So the components you add to it add the functionality. So adds the render mesh, or adds the physics simulation, or adds the network component, or adds certain behaviors. So it can add like an item port component adds to it, and that allows the ability for other items to plug into it. And so that's kind of what we shift to do. It's very much that is the sort of the current, like the next gen way game engines are built, is very componentized. CryEngine was built quite a while ago, so it doesn't quite have that implementation. So we've, under the hood, been completely re-engineering all that to a very different component system, because that's basically the way you would build an engine in today's world, and it allows us a lot of flexibility. And because we have such a big world, and we want to be, we want a space station to have all this functionality where the doors and the lights and everything work and security systems work, but have the same on an Idris Corvette where you as the captain could shut down areas and do all the rest of the stuff. And even if you're wearing your armor suit, it's powered, or you've got a life support system on the back, and if someone shoots the life support and damages it, then you won't get any oxygen to your helmet, and you may asphyxiate. So all that sort of systemic behavior has been built in, and it kind of comes with this sort of item system 2.0. So there are little bits of that in the game right now, although we won't be fully across to it probably for another couple of months, because it's a huge engineering stuff, and they've been working on this for close to a year now, on this whole sort of build and refactor on what we've been doing. But when it's in, there's a lot of functionality that you don't have in the game now, a lot of systemic behavior. You'll be able to do all sorts of really cool things in like boarding or defending a boarding action, or on a space station there'll be more than one way to sort of solve a problem. And I think it'll be fun, and it will pay off in Squadron 42 and definitely in the persistent universe. So I'm actually really quite excited that we have quite a few internal prototypes we've done of the stuff, and it's pretty cool. I think you guys may have seen like the little space station prototype that was done. So yeah, there you go. That's probably a longer answer than you asked for, but yeah.
Right. There's no problem with more information. Now I was just thinking, if Ben's flying his constellation around, and I can run around behind and start pulling components out, and his engines will just stop.
Yeah, totally. And in fact, actually, one of the things we want to do on the bigger ships is to actually give a lot of roles for people to do besides just being the helms person or manning a turret, right? So, or being the weapons officer, figuring out where you're going to fire missiles. And so, when the bigger ships, as they take damage, like what's really going to happen is we're not going to have this sort of big explosion anymore. We're going to parts of the outside damage, and they propagate some damage interior, and then maybe a subsystem explodes, and that damage would now make another system inside with damage. And so there actually will be a fair amount of hopeful gameplay, like when you're damaged, where like players can run around, and it'll be like an old sub movie where they're like sealing off the leaks or whatever. So you'd go and like say a power node's gone down on the right side of the ship, and so the turret in the back's not working, and if you go back, you go there and see how it's blown, you take the fuse out, put another fuse in, power is now restored. Or perhaps if you're the engineer, you'll look at your node layout and reroute the power through another node. So we're building the big ships with sort of these sort of power plant and then kind of nodes where the various systems come off the nodes, and each node, think of them as sort of a router box or a fuse box, and maybe some of those nodes could have a battery in them to sort of store power. So if they lose power from the power plant, they've got like an hour's charge or whatever. Some may not have, but these are also the systems that get blown or damaged, and so there's a gameplay that would involve, as your ship's taking damage, you're going quick, go back there, replace, fix the fuse or work on the engine. So we want to have gameplay on the bigger ships where players are moving around and interacting. The ship itself sort of functions correctly. So it's not just about the items attached on the outside of it, it's also the items inside. So we're having everything like, the avionics module is really kind of like a computer motherboard. You put these different cards into it that give you this different functionality, you plug them in, and that's kind of that whole idea of that sort of modular item system where you can plug items into other items and you can just sort of extend out functionality and behavior, and each item brings its own sort of rules and functionality of what it does.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Breezy asks, what are the short-term plans for dealing with server desync in the PU and Arena Commander?
Well, short-term plans we're trying to address them. Part of the issue is that, and this is, I mentioned this in the 10 for the chairman that I recorded yesterday, but no one's going to see it till next Monday. But one of the reasons why there is some desync is because the server and the clients don't run at the same frame rate. So we can quite easily have a server come under significant load and drop all the way down to 5 frames a second, whereas someone could be running on their machine at 30 frames a second or 40 frames a second. And so one of the big things that we're trying to do is fix some of the server behavior. So there's some in the last few patches we've added some more functionality in places, and so like the more AI you fight, the AI is all simulated on the server, so that actually stresses the server more than it would stress the client, because on the client side it simulates your local ship and your local player, but all the remote clients and all the AI, the remote clients all come from other clients that pass up their information to the server, and then the server simulates all the AI. So the server so every client basically does, say, like the IFCS simulation for, so every client does the IFCS simulation for one ship normally, but the server will do the IFCS simulation for all the AI ships. So if you suddenly have 50 or 60 or 70 AI flying around, that's 50 or 60 or 70 IFCS simulations, and the IFCS sort of flight model simulations pretty heavy mathematically, so we're looking at some stuff to optimize how some of this stuff done, because we've more and more functionality has been added to it, but we haven't really spent time in optimizing it. But that's one of the reasons why the frame rate goes down. And then we have sort of some thread contention issues between network and the physics and the main thread on the server, and so we're just trying to fix and address those to get better server performance, which will help with the desync you see. But the real answer is the full-on backend, the full-on sort of new serialization method that we're going to use, which sort of completely junks the old CRY network setup, which we're fairly far along on, and that will be switching out, and that hopefully will just make things much like there'll be less bandwidth going over the network. Because right now there's a lot of bandwidth when you spawn a ship. There's a massive amount that goes, and also it just ends up sending more data than it needs to. Like if you have a position change, well, the way it's currently set up is these things called aspects, and there's only a limited amount of aspects that can be sent for any ship. One aspect could be like your movement, which would include your position, your velocity, your orientation, a bunch of other data, and so that could be, I don't know, a 60 byte or 100 byte chunk. But if you just change the position, it has to send that whole blob of data. But really, you shouldn't really have to send that much data. So our new system isn't sort of limited that way. It basically only sends the bits that change, and it's not limited on 32 aspects or anything like that. It's much more flexible, and so that will reduce the data. The other big thing that would reduce the network data is when you spawn a ship. Like, we have very complicated ships, so you have even a Hornet, which isn't a big ship. So imagine a Constellation or something bigger like a Starfarer or Idris. But say a Hornet is a vehicle, and then it's got about 60 items attached to it. So what happens right now is the server will spawn the vehicle, the Hornet hull basically, and say, spawn this to all the clients, so that message goes out to all the clients, and then one by one it starts adding all the items on and sending a message saying spawn this, spawn this, spawn this. So you're basically sending all this traffic about the Hornet to spawn, and it's going back and forth. There's a lot, and the simple thing would be just be able to say a message to say, I'm a Hornet, here's the 60 things attached to me, you go spawn it, rather than one by one spawning, doing handshake between servers and clients. So that's a new what we call a spawn bundle, where you basically just say, you deterministically say, here is a ship and here's all the things, here's the entities attached to it, you go build it. And then the client, the remote client, or the clients are all just doing that, and it all happens. And that would greatly reduce the data, because something like a Retaliator can end up being about 5 megabytes of network traffic just to spawn a Retaliator, whereas in the method that I'm talking about, you're only going to be passing sort of your entity ID. So, in the case of Retaliator, I'm not quite sure how many things are attached, but that would be the equivalent of, say, no more than, say, 150, 64, 150 times 64 bits. So, basically a lot less.
Don't ask me to do math.
Right.
Math.
So those things will make the desync problems, and we're aware of them. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to fix what we can on the current system, because our new system's not that far off from us starting to deploy it. So we don't want to do too much work fixing the old system, because the new system is going to be much more flexible. But the new system sort of comes in with the item 2.0 stuff. But yes, we definitely want to address and fix those issues. So that's what it is.
Thank you much. That was the answer I was looking for. All right. Sloan Warrior wants to know if the procedural tech will ever be used for things other than planets.
Well, the procedural tech's definitely going to be used for what we would call planetoids. You can consider, basically a planetoid is anything that has enough mass that will end up being spherical. We're not going to use the specific procedural tech we have right now to sort of do small jaggy shaped asteroids, because it's not really built or designed for that. But we're going to, for instance, we would probably have what you would consider a moon or a very large asteroid that could be particularly spherical used with this. So we're going to, one of the first things we're going to be using, so we're going to have the procedural planets when they debut. There's going to be two things they're really going to use. One is the landing area, and the second is that's going to be our first iteration of sort of mining mineral collection. So we're going to, these are fairly large and procedural, so one of the things we can do is you can fly around and we can sort of denote where the areas like a mineral seam would be or something. So there will be gameplay sort of scanning at a high level, figuring out where it is, going down and locating mineral seams, and then harvesting them, getting minerals and taking them back and selling them for some money. So when we get the procedural planet stuff in, which is not too far away, the things that we'll have is the landing and the mining. So those are the things what we're searching on. We'll probably do the landing first, and the mining will come in right after it. But we're kind of pretty focused on gameplay that will let you do some other things besides just combat. So doing cargo runs, doing some mining, as well as doing some combat, and creating sort of a very basic economic system that's going on, and we sort of build out from there.
Gotcha. All right. RN Soulstrider wants to know, how is character customization coming along?
Well, it's going pretty well. I think you're going to see the first part of it in 2.4 that comes out. That's, our goal is we've shifted the characters over to this new item system. So everything you wear, if you wear a sweater or you wear a t-shirt or trousers, watch, they're all items that just basically attached to your character. So you basically, as a character, you're a naked male or you're a naked female when we have the full female motion sets in, and then you basically dress yourself just like you would. It's sort of like, oh, I'll put my pants on or a shirt, or if you're wearing armor, you put an undersuit for the armor and put the armor pieces on and stuff like that. So it's going to be pretty cool. You have a fair amount of customization. In the beginning, we're going to have a lot more clothes and items and variety down the road, but I think at the moment, at the beginning, we'll just sort of have a certain number of shirts and jackets and it's different colors. As far as the face customization, that's still a little bit ways off. That sort of relies on, probably the first version of that is we have 16 NPC sort of archetypes right now, so 8 male, 8 female, and you'd be able to choose one of them for your character. And I'm not sure if that's going to be in 2.4, but it won't be far after. And then the longer term plan is to be able to take the archetype and mess with it and sort of give yourself a bigger nose, or but things like changing the color of your eyes or changing the color of your hair or hairstyle, that's all pretty easy on the base archetypes. So that would be your first. So we'd have the choose your hair, then the next level would probably be choosing eye color, hairstyle, hair color, potentially skin color, I don't know. And then the final stage of that would be able for you to actually sort of kind of move the geometry around to kind of what you're used to in a sort of MMO. And that's really going to come in with we have this idea, this in-fiction idea of going to this, whatever you want to call it, like sort of the future version of plastic surgery. You pay some money and you can get your face redone, and it's part of actually the story of Squadron 42 at the beginning. Is that's how we sort of in fiction you get horribly burnt and hurt in the opening, and you get the opportunity to reconstruct your face, which however you want to be. So that's how inside the fiction and the story we get the player to make his avatar be them. Or make her avatar be them, him or her, whoever they want to be.
Gotcha. Okay, so I was just going through some of those.
I know I've seen a lot of concept art of pants coming out of Team and Austin. It seems every time I log in shotgun, there's pants.
Well, we're gonna push some more. So we need to have the plan is to maybe debut a new spacesuit for 2.4, and then we're gonna have some more. So you have some player options of, these are my spacesuits, or an environment suit, or perhaps so you can buy some armor. So rather than everyone, because everyone right now is running around in the light marine outfit, and it's the old light marine outfit. So this is what you're running around now. The character models now aren't close to the fidelity that the final game's going to have, and not close to what Squadron 42 had. So our new sort of character tech and shader tech is like a whole level beyond what's currently in the game, and I think beyond what we've shown anyone actually. So it's I'm really quite happy with how that's turning out. It's definitely on a par with anyone out there. So I don't look at Uncharted 4 or anyone and say, oh yeah, they're better than us, or The Order 1886. We've got some really great stuff coming. So you guys will like
it. All right, there's enough requests that I have to say. They're asking the hand things that's coming across the thing. They're asking if you can play drums like Travis Barker. Right?
All right. I'll try not to bang it so much.
Chris got to be Chris, guys.
Yeah, I always move my hands around.
Let's see. So, any ideas what the next profession design doc might be?
The next profession design doc.
I lost the name for the person, but
I don't know. I know everyone's quite keen on the profession stuff. I do know that one of the things that we're going to sort of put a system in place and codify is the kind of recovery system, and we're building it in such a way that it's not just recovery, it's the ability to sort of broadcast your position to your friends and everything else. So it's going to be a lot of the same system, because people do this already in the game, which is pretty cool, that they go and pick up people that are stranded via chat. And so what we need to do and want to do is start to build that into the system so it actually can be a job, right? So someone can say, oh, I'm stuck in space, pick me up, and someone can get paid 1,000 alpha UEC to go and rescue someone and deliver them. With persistence, this becomes more and more, because we're going to basically have, when the Starfarer gets around flying, there'll be refueling that will come with the Starfarer. So we're starting to add in functionality, and we'll want to be expanding out the systems themselves, like Stanton's system, and add more areas to it, and give you more things to do and reasons to travel to different places. So there's a lot of cool stuff that's all happening this year. Can't happen fast enough for me or everyone else probably out there. But it's I'm pretty excited because when it's all there and it's all going to be working with the level of detail that we got, there's no game's ever going to be like it. And to be honest with you, I think it'll be pretty hard for someone to try to do it and compete. I mean, I think maybe the Rockstar guys could because they've got the resources, but I mean, it just takes a lot of work to build something at this fidelity and level, with this many possibilities and options. And we get to do it because you guys are really allowed us to do it. So thank you for doing that. But it's going to be an awesome experience when it's all done.
Any updates on the launcher revamp? There's been some talk lately about new additions to the launcher. Being asked quite a bit. So
yeah, I mean, I don't particularly have like an update as in it's going to come tomorrow or anything, but it's definitely, we're working on it. That is the plan. I mean, we have a complete revamp of the sort of content delivery plan that we're going to do, so people won't have to download nearly the amount of data that they download now every time we do a patch. Because right now it's just very inefficient because basically the data is all broken up into 2 gigabyte pack files, and if just 1 byte changes in one of those pack files, you have to give them the whole 2 gigabytes. So we're changing to a completely different structure that is only going to be about delivering the files that changed, and then the sort of pack files are all built locally on your machine. So we'll actually have the ability, this is also for our developer side as well as the front-facing delivery, that essentially every time a developer checks in some code or checks in an asset, it's getting built right then and there and added to what they call the object store in our system. Okay. And you'll be able to just say, okay, give me build of this change list, and it can look up and go, okay, and it just adds, and it can just build it from all those. So essentially every, it's almost like a whatever you want to call it, perforce or a JIT of every asset as it's getting checked in is getting its built. And so what will happen is when we deliver builds to people, the turnaround is going to be a lot quicker because it's basically getting built as it goes. And also we can look at what they have on their machine and just give them the bits they don't have or the bits that have changed. And so it will greatly reduce the amount of data. I think that we did analysis on a few of our older patches that were 30 gigs, and determined that we're using this new system, it would have been 7 megabytes. The system, when it's built, and this is the new patch is going to work with that. So everyone's working on this, but when it's done, it means our turnaround times will be a lot faster. I mean, right now, when we want to kick off a full build, we kick off, actually a full build where we build every single asset is about 12 hours. The sort of reduced builds or about 3 hours or so, and if we do a code-only build, it's about an hour. But that doesn't include the amount of time to stage it for the our QA department to sanity check it and test it and make sure it doesn't blow up. So for us, when we're trying to get a patch out, a lot of times there will be fixes that won't make it because we're if we rebuild it now, it's going to be 4 hours later. Before we can deliver it live, and that's assuming nothing goes wrong. That's assuming that QA doesn't get it and something that we thought was fixed is broken, and so with this new method, you can that could turn around way quicker. So I think quality of the patches, the turnaround will be faster, and data use for everybody will be faster. So it'll be better for us because we spend a lot of money every month. I mean, I don't think people realize it. I know that everyone thinks we're still in development and all the rest of stuff, but we spend a lot of money every month on both data delivery and running the servers that we run. So we kind of behave like a live game in terms of some of our operational costs, which is cool because it's great. I love the iteration, I love the feedback, and I think people definitely out there in the community can see that there is stuff that we only ever see when it goes to PT or it goes to live that we cannot see internally. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know how all these other big online games do it because it's not like we've got world-class people, and there are just things that you don't see until you're under scale. So so when I see whenever it's a big launch by whoever big publisher it is and it all blows up, I'm like, yeah, probably, because some of these things you just don't see till you get load and scale. So the way we're doing it, I think, is going to make a much better game long term. And we certainly, people are asking about performance or desync issues. Like, you normally would never even be worrying about that in development this early on, but since people are playing and using it, we are constantly sort of having to sort of keep our house in order, so to speak. The new sort of patcher and whole build and data system is sort of the next evolution of that. So it's in progress. I don't have specific dates when it'll come out, but when it does, it will, I think, be really good, and it will be better experience all around.
Following up on the persistence question, people are getting excited about the ability to arrange things in their hangars, because their hangars will sort of become their home. Are there any updates on when people will be able to visit other people's hangars?
No. I'd have to talk to Tony. I mean, it's part of our roadmap. I mean, my goal ultimately would be to actually have your hangar be like in Stanton or wherever you were, and so you're not going to a load screen anywhere. It's sort of like you're just walking out of your place, flying out the hangar door, and you're flying out in space. In terms of visiting other hangars, I would have to coordinate with or ask Tony on that. But I think the ideal of how we would implement it now will ultimately go away, because how it will be implemented now will be just enabling the hangar to be sort of a multiplayer mode, just like you're in Arena Commander multiplayer or you're in Crusader multiplayer. Whereas really everything's just going to be sitting inside essentially one big universe. With the possible exception of dropping out into Arena Commander. But even then, I think that'll be fairly seamless. It'll stream in the Arena Commander assets and then just hand you off to an Arena Commander server, and you won't see a loading screen like you do currently.
Okay.
You always look like you're giggling at whatever's coming up in the chat,
I can,
which I can't see.
I adore listening to your answers. That's the nicest thing I can say. I'm uncomfortable saying nice things. You know me. I don't say nice things. I'm like, I really enjoy listening to them.
When I'm true. You are kind of a jerk.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable. Yes, Tyler's over there going, yes, he never says anything nice. I'm not good at saying things nice. I just really like listening to Chris. He knows what he's talking about. I enjoy it. I'm sorry. Now Hennessy is laughing at me. These guys aren't funny. No.
How many people are watching us on Twitch right now?
I don't even have Twitch open right now.
Because that's the number.
1,015.
That's the number of people who are laughing at you.
That's the number of people who are like, oh, Jared said something nice and he got embarrassed. I don't want to do this anymore. Knight Rider asks a question. What's the development, what's the progress on multi-core engine balancing for the client? Are we still working on that?
Oh, yeah. And I tell you, well, it's the same stuff that I'm talking about for the server in terms of better performance, better scalability. Server and the client have a lot of similarities, other than the client's doing the rendering and sort of doing more sort of input-output, because it's having to stream in like rendering assets and sound assets. But yes, that's part of part of our focus is scalability, so how we can utilize more cores as we go. I think I've mentioned before, like in the server case, it really can make a difference, because we run the actual physical servers we run on have 16 physical cores or 32 logical cores or threads, if you want to think about it. And we run 8 game server instances on that, so each one gets 2 physical cores or 4 logical cores, right? The way to think of it, and each one of those right now has 24 players cap. So if you just took 8 times 24, if you could just have one server instance use all 16 cores, that even with us still needing loads of optimization, you're close to 200 players just on one server there. Yeah. So we actually do run close to 200 players on one physical server right now, but the way the engine's built in such a way, we can't scale it that. We just can't just add the cores and all of a sudden it scales better. So we have to refactor a bunch of stuff. It's partly, again, some of the stuff that I'm discussing that we're sort of doing in the background. The new item system, which is really a new entity system. Some of the serialization stuff that we're doing, and we're redoing. On the physics side, we're optimizing the current physics, but we're actually building a whole new, more scalable physics system, which isn't going to debut. It won't be for Squadron 42, but Squadron 42 doesn't really need it because it's really more a single player game. But we are building one for Star Citizen for these scalability reasons, because really physics is the thing that the server does the most. What it does the most is physics and network stuff. And so if we can make that more scalable, the current cry physics sort of tops out at a certain, like, right, more than say 3 or 4 threads, and you're not really getting much benefit. But if we can get that scaling all the way out and more parallelism, then we can just put everything all on one physical instance, which would be much better, because then you don't have these different virtual instances all contending for, say, the same disk access and all the rest of the stuff. So it will be good. So we're doing that, and this work that does that is the same kind of approach and work for the client, and we're doing stuff on the rendering side for more scalability. So we're starting to put the pieces in place for the move to sort of the next gen APIs like Vulkan and DX12, as well as cleaning up the whole DX11, because the problem with a lot of DX11 implementations, including the CryEngine one, is they really were DX9 implementations that then had DX11 put on top, and DX11 operates actually fairly different than DX9, but because they had to deal with DX9, they couldn't utilize all the so there's a lot of organization in terms of how you do things that you can do for DX11 that also is what you want to do for Vulkan and DX12. So we're not doing DX9, and we're not doing it for a long time. So we're basically getting rid of the old stuff, refactoring a whole bunch of stuff down on the engine level to allow better parallelism and stuff. So it's an ongoing task. A lot of that's been done in Frankfurt by the guys that essentially wrote the engine many years ago anyway. And this is all stuff that they've wanted to do for a while. So we are working on it. It's just a sort of ongoing, slow process. But I think by down the road, you'll have a very fast and beautiful game. But it's always you take a look at what Star Citizen looks now, what it looked like in 2015, what it looked like in 2014, what it looked like in 2013. There's big differences, and you'll continue to see that.
One of my absolute favorite aspects of this is that we get to see the development of a game live like this.
And it's not even if we say okay, now it's whatever you want to call it, done, release, whatever, it's not stopping.
No.
We're always going to be improving, like the graphics, the performance, the content, the functionality. I mean, I look at it as a sort of, we're building a universe, and we're going to keep this universe running as long as possible, as long as there's people out there that want to play in it. Hopefully you guys do. Hopefully we build something that's fun enough for you. But yeah, it's just an ongoing, because it'll be it's a virtual world that you're just going to escape to and live your alternate life in.
Yes, I look forward to spending what little free time I still have playing Star Citizen. All right, Code 90. He wants to know. He's like, it's like more than flying, more than fighting, more than FPS, more than exploration. When can I have lockable doors on my spaceship?
I would say that not too far in the distant future. It won't be the next patch, and probably not the patch afterwards, but maybe after that. Because one of the things that we're going to do is, with things like the Starfarer flying around, I mean, you're flying around in large ships, and so then there's going to be that whole aspect of boarding and persistence, of course, taking a ship from someone else and all the rest of the stuff. So that is gameplay that is important. So we kind of actually want to add in gameplay that allows you to sort of lock the doors, and then someone else that's trying to do it has to hack them or use a charge to blow them open if they're trying to get in. And so all that kind of comes with the new item system. So when the new item system is all fully functioning, all the doors, all the rest, they're all interconnected, they all talk to each other, and you can implement sort of security and states and all the rest of the stuff. So really that side of it is sort of waiting on the remaining aspects we're closing out on item system 2.0. But I would say it's in the it's in the near future. It's not in the far future.
Right. One of the easiest ways for players to feel ownership of their vehicles in games is to paint them, is to decorate them how they wish. Do we have any updates on the ship paint system, decorating the interior, anything like that?
So I would say that on the paint system, not particularly. That's sort of lower priority for us right now. I'd rather get these base functionality stuff that I've talked in, like the item system and locking stuff down. But like the way you'll be able to customize, say, your hangar is not different than the way you could like maybe customize the interior of a spaceship. Put a couch here or not put a couch here, or put a picture on the wall or not put a picture on the wall. In terms of the external livery, our plans are to allow you to place some decals around, put a name down, and then if the ship's set up correctly with the shaders, then you can change, say, your primary or secondary colors or something like that. But it becomes kind of complicated on like the very big ships, because they all sort of use sort of modular parts. So it's in certain level we're probably going to restrict it to kind of like picking your sort of primary and secondary colors and doing decals, rather than like doing very custom paint jobs with flames left, right, and center. I mean, that could be done with a decal, but someone getting totally crazy. But that's right now the system's in there, right? It's got the UV. You need like a second UV set to be able to enable that. And if you play in Crusader, you go and you'll meet some pirate ships, and they've got a different livery than other ships have, and that's done with the paint system. So what we really don't have is sort of an ability to sort of like expose that to players, like, oh, I can get this skin and that skin. But we do, we are going to implement the various skins, the Electro skins that people pledged for them back quite a while ago. So that'd be the first stage. Second stage would be to allow further customization by players. But again, there's a mountain of tasks, and there's a whole bunch of stuff, and there's certain things like I think people would rather have cargo working before they can paint their ship, right? I'm guessing, or mining working before they can paint the ship. So they really sort of comes down to these, that you just sort of make these choices. It's like VR. The Oculus sent me my Kickstarter Oculus set, which I think you tweeted a picture of.
The box.
Yeah, and of course I'd like to get all that working, but the same brilliant graphics engineers that would have that all working, which we can because we already have sort of code in it, are also the same ones that are working on things like getting the procedural planet in a shape that everyone in the community can use it. That's everybody can use that versus just a subset that have the Oculus Rift. So those are sort of the hard choices you make. The hard choice you make is, well, let's get that base technology that everyone can use first, rather than something that's super, super awesome, super cool, but maybe 10% or 5% of our community can use. So it sucks because I like all that stuff too. The thing fell down. I got shorter. There we go. Got taller again.
So there's no underestimating the importance of prioritization in game development. So it's 11:15. We started 15 minutes late. We fulfilled our hour. Thank you so much, Chris, for taking the time to sit down with us on our special subscriber edition of RTV. Remember, if you're not a subscriber, you can subscribe on the RSI website in the Pledge Store. You support shows like this, Around the Verse, 10 for the Chairman, and you get yourself a whole lot of goodies like Hangar Flare and access to alien ships and all kinds of stuff. So check it out. Chris, thanks for joining us. Ben, you got anything you want to add before we take off?
No, Turbulent has Starfarers are in everybody's hangars. If you want to go check them out now, shouldn't have to make any changes at all. They should just show up.
That's for everybody, even if they don't know them?
Everybody, yeah. It's the demo, so everybody can check out all the work Foundry did on this very large ship.
It's a very nice ship.
It is a very large ship, and it's very cool when it flies around, I have to say. So we have some internal stuff that we've been flying it around, and we've even had people like boarding the ship, and so it's. I think that's going to be. I'm sure I'll see some cool YouTube videos in 2.4.
People say I'm a tease.
Yeah.
All right. Take it easy, everybody.
Bye.